Welcome to the latest episode of Cyber Snapshot. Today, I'm joined by Lanny Barcelos, Security Solutions Architect at ISA Cybersecurity. And we're going to be discussing SIEM, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Welcome, Lanny. There seems to be a lot of discussion around SIEM these days. What's all the fuss about, and why is Next Gen SIEM getting a lot of attention?
Yeah, great question, Phil, and one that gets discussed quite frequently. So when we take a look at the legacy generation of SIEMs, we're dealing with solutions that essentially acted as event log aggregators with basic to intermediate analytics capabilities. On the other hand, next-gen SIEMs have significantly expanded their core capability set while also undergoing a dramatic improvement on advanced analytics. So that's the short answer, and I'll go into a bit more detail on some of the next-gen SIEM improvements. So for example, you can now ingest unique data streams that produce customized data, which was just not possible before. So for example, aside from ingesting your Windows or Linux server logs, you may have quite a few custom applications residing within those very servers that produce their own custom logs. And that visibility you gain at the application layer is a key advantage. Another improvement is that alerting is no longer event log driven, as you can now ingest flow data, so network data. And for advanced analytics, you now have user behavior and entity analytics that can incorporate machine learning functionality and mild applications of artificial intelligence, which certain SIEMs allow to automate and remediate based on risk score thresholds. And then finally, when we take a look at the solution architecture perspective, SIEMs have gone from a purely on-prem delivery model to support hybrid and cloud native flavors, which aligns with the digital transformation happening out there to the cloud. And one benefit that provides from an on-prem delivery is that it alleviates that requirement on hardware appliances. So you can now leverage your own virtual environment when it comes to deploying log and flow collectors within your network.
You know, Lanny, a decision a lot of technology leaders and a lot of our listeners are struggling with is managed versus hosted. Can you shed some light on what might be the right decision for different types of businesses?
Yeah, definitely. So for the benefit of our audience, I think it's important to clarify how I define each service type. So managed is where you own the licenses and choice of infrastructure, such as including where it's deployed or hosted, and you outsource a portion or the entire management of that SIEM to an external source, such as a managed security services provider like ISA Cybersecurity. Whether it's triage, analysis, or escalation support by their analysts, change or patch management, these a la carte options are available. Now, hosted is where a provider, like a managed security services provider, takes on the entire liability. They own the licensing, the infrastructure, the people, the processes, and so on, and that the customer consumes as a service. Does that make sense, Phil?
Does indeed.
So to start answering the question, first and foremost, it all depends on the organization's security goals and objectives. So let me ask you a question, Phil. As a former CIO, what kept you awake at night?
Protecting customer data for sure.
You join millions of CIOs with the same answer. So a common obsession for organizations is their data. And yet I always ask myself, why invest in a SIEM when you can't provide a set of eyes to your environment on a 24/7/365 basis? It's just foolish when you think about it to believe that attacks are only going to happen in your specific time zone. So essentially, a SIEM holds no value without a set of trained eyes on glass. And I think that's one of the biggest questions decision makers need to ask themselves before answering the question of managed or hosted. So if you have an in-house security practice and you're considering managed service option, it's important to answer key questions such as, am I retaining my prized talent, or am I constantly replacing, rehiring, or onboarding? Is the quality of triage and analysis lacking? Perhaps it would make more sense to offload the triage tier 1 or analysis tier 2 and have my in-house talent, which is a smaller team, serve as a tier 3 to escalate and save cycles. Am I struggling to scale, patch, and troubleshoot the SIEM on a 24/7 365 basis? And how strong are my vendor partner relationships when I need them most? For those that are trying to decide on whether hosted is the best path, I'd ask the questions, am I limited by budget to build an in-house practice from scratch in a 24/7 by 365 delivery? Do I want to avoid the liability of owning the SIEM licensing, lifecycle management, and people? Do I want to avoid the cost of ripping and replacing that SIEM and newer technologies down the road? Or do I want the flexibility of 1, 3, and 5-year options so I can reassess the quality of the service? So if you answered yes to any of those questions, hosted makes more sense.
Well, thank you for the discussion today, Lanny, and be sure to join us for the next episode of Cyber Snapshot, brought to you by ISA Cybersecurity.
Thanks for having me on, Phil.